First of all, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our practical locations webinar with Eoin. I think a lot of you probably know Eoin from working with him previously. He's obviously a locations manager, and he was also part of the SIPTU negotiating team for the crew negotiations. So he's very good understanding both from a practical component and from having negotiated of the locations clauses. And you all will have received the kind of locations explainer documents that he put together. I suppose it's an unofficial explainer document, but it's been very helpful just to kind of be able to visualize what the radiuses look like and all of that while we wait for the maps to be finalized for the appendix of the agreement. Just a quick to go over the tech side of things. So everybody should see a Q&A box at the bottom of their screen. We'll be managing the question and answer session through that Q&A box. So Eoin's going to take us through the explainer in the first instance, and then we'll go on to question and answer. But if you do have questions that pop up while Eoin's kind of talking through everything, feel free to pop it in there, and we'll just manage that in the order that they come in. I also want to say thank you to Graham and Martin from SIPTU are on the line as well, just so we all ensure that we're sharing the same information. And just to let everybody know that this is also being recorded. So the intention is that we will post this up on the SPI member section of the website, because I expect as people start to operate the locations clauses when they go back to shoot, there'll be some questions that crop up, and this will be a good resource for people to be able to reference. Thank you so much. So I might kick it across to Eoin, who's just going to take us through the explainer document and give us some examples of how it operates.
Cool. Thanks, Claire. Hi, everyone. So I can't see everyone. I can see names, but anyway, I know you're there. So I'm just going to try and share my screen. Okay. Great. So does everybody have that, Claire? Is that up? Yeah, great. Okay. So look, I suppose as Claire explained, this is I put together this explainer document because for lots of reasons the clauses are quite wordy, and it can come across quite complex, I think, in the agreement. And there's actually no avoiding that all that wording needs to be there to allow for everything that could happen, or what people might need to do. But to say the purpose of this document was to kind of simplify it for everyday work, as in what we would need on the ground when we're working on a job, and obviously for me as a location manager when I start scouting it. So what I'll do is I'll just read through it and explain. If I think something needs a little bit more of an explanation, I'll do that. Claire, I guess I'm not. Will I see questions pop up, or if someone wants to ask a question, you're going to moderate that and then just tell me? Is that the handiest thing?
Yep, that's the handiest thing. So we've got a little question and answer box, and that'll just pop up as people type it in, and we can just take it. I'll just read those out as those come up.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Look, I'll start. So the easiest way for me to explain this was a Dublin production zone example. All right. And it's probably the example that most of us in the industry would be using. But obviously this example would apply to if you're in Galway or one of the other GPO zones as well. So the Dublin production zone example, the production office may be located anywhere within a 40-kilometre radius of the GPO Dublin. So that's pretty self-explanatory. It used to be 24 kilometers, and then actually just give you the background, it used to be 24, and then you could push out another 16 kilometers from that, i.e. 10 miles, to find your locations. So it was always 40, but you could never realize the 40 because you could never find your production office right on the 26. So it didn't really work. So this is just a simpler way of doing it. So you start by trying to find your production office anywhere within a 40-kilometer radius of the GPO in Dublin. And there's a map at the end. Can I make that a bit smaller to show the map? I can. Perfect. Okay, well, give me 1 second. That might be a bit clearer. Okay. all locations within a 25-kilometer radius of the production office and not breaking the original 40-kilometer radius of GPO incur no mileage or travel time charges. So you can see on the map, I selected an office in Tala, and I'm pretty sure actually that people are starting to figure out now when they're scouting that Tala is a prime spot for an office. It gets you a lot. But anyway, you put your office in Tala, which is within your 40-kilometer radius. And then you have 25-kilometer travel zone from Tala. So the inner circle is where all of your locations can be without incurring a mileage or travel time charge. If you break that inner circle, you will incur mileage or travel time. So even though you break that circle and it looks on this map, you're like, well, I'm still in the 40-kilometer radius of the GPO. That may be the case, but your travel zone is 25. So you have to keep, to avoid travel time and mileage charges, you need to keep it in the 25-kilometer radius of your production office. Travel time and mileage charges are calculated from production office to location, not from the edge of the radius. So we're all familiar with this. You find a location that's literally, 26 kilometers from the office, and so it's just out of the zone. But yes, mileage is charged from the production office, not the edge. So you don't just pay the 1 kilometer; you have to pay the 26, which is, or whatever the mileage is from the production office. A production may move to a studio facility within the production zone once. Okay, so just to explain that with the map that we have here, let's say you don't have a studio facility in your office in Tala, but you need to do a build, and the only studio that's available is in Skerries. Sorry, this is a bit random. So Skerries, right? So Skerries is outside your 25 kilometers, but it is in the 40 kilometers production zone. So you can leave Tala and go to that studio facility once without incurring any additional mileage or travel time charges for the purposes of building and filming on a set. Okay, so likewise, that that studio facility could be Balbriggan, it could be just whereas outside Naas, it could be anywhere so long as it's within the 40-kilometer original production zone. If the travel time to and from a location combined with a crew member's working day exceeds 13 hours, the production company is obliged to provide accommodation. So I think like the explanation for this is probably quite wordy in the agreement. So the background to this is for a lot of crew, it's not necessarily about the distance to the location, but it's the amount of time that it will take to get to that location and then working and then returning. Okay, so and obviously different crew have different work hours. If you're just exclusively shooting crew and you turn up for unit call and you finish at wrap, they're the hours that you do. But if you've got a lot of prep and wrap involved in your working day, for example, locations department or hair, makeup, costume department as well, and lots of other departments, then that time also has to be taken into account. So I guess to give you an example of it would be if you were, so let's see, we're in Tala and we have a location. Let's make it a bit tricky. Let's push it out to, so we are just beyond Naas, right? So we are right at the edge of our zone, of our 25-kilometer zone. So we're doing a normal 11 or 10 hour plus lunch. So it's an 11 hours, right? But it has 500 extras and it's a medieval film, and the prep and strike time for a lot of crew is substantial. So maybe the costume guys have 2 hours before call and they have another 90 minutes after call to wrap everything up, right? So they're exceeding their 13-hour day, right? So even though, so this is to kind of combat this problem. So even though the location is within the zone, and even though a lot of crew can get there and do their day's work and be back at the production office within 13 hours, because the travel time, let's say the travel time to there is 40 minutes each way. So they can still do their 10-hour plus lunch, travel there and back in their 13 hours. but some crew members, because of the amount of prep and strike involved in their day, are unable to do that. And really what this agreement is about, well, not what it's about, but these clauses in particular, we wanted to be conscious of the hours that people are doing, because it's not always necessarily the distance you're traveling, it's actually the hours that you're doing in your working day. And that is why that clause is there. So it's just to make people aware that even when you're picking a location, think carefully about what you need, exactly where it is in your zone. And just because it's in the 25 kilometers does not mean that nobody's going to charge mileage, or sorry, it doesn't mean that there's not going to be additional costs with it. So even though it doesn't incur mileage charge, or even though it doesn't incur a travel charge, it will require accommodation and putting people up if their working day is longer than 13 hours. Or what would be more preferable there is to schedule the crew, or to maybe bring in additional people, so that nobody is working more than the 13 hours. So people may be able to do 11 or 12 hours, a little bit of overtime, and then get home. So that's what that clause means. Travel time and mileage will be paid at single time and calculated from the base to location as per the movement order distance. So that's fairly self-explanatory. We're all familiar with the movement order. It has the official travel time and distance on it, and that's what the charges are based on, or the payments are based on. So then that map, that's a very simple map. It kind of shows a typical example. You've got a 40-kilometer radius from the GPO, and then you position your office in Tala, base yourself out of Tala, and then you've got 25 kilometers from there. So that's a simple one, because the 25 stays within the 40. Okay. The next office example is Ardmore, which will be a fairly popular option for lots of people, I'm sure. So you can see here where we have an example of where the travel zone moves outside of the existing production zone. So this shows where, when your 25 kilometers breaks the original 40-kilometer production zone, you will incur charges for that part of your radius that has broken the original 40. So it's illustrated in this map. We've got our 40-kilometer radius GPO that we had in the last one. In this instance, the office is in Bray, it's in Ardmore Studios, and there's a portion of the 25 kilometers that is outside the 40 kilometers production zone. So for example, if you look in the smaller map here, you can see this, we'll use Rathnew. And actually, funny, I was scouting out there yesterday for a job that might be in Ardmore. But in this instance, if you were to find your locations in Rathnew, you need to be careful here, because even though it's within 25, it is breaking the 40-kilometer production radius. So regardless of it being within your travel zone, because you've broken the 40, you will incur mileage and travel charges. Okay, so hopefully that map illustrates that clause clearly. Here's another one. There's offices in Croke Park that people are using, and it's similar to the one in Tala. Your 25 kilometers is easily contained within your original 40. So there's no, it's different obviously to this example here in Ardmore. There's no risk of you, if you stay within your 25, ever breaking the 40 when you're here, because the 40 is out here and your 25 is there. Now, there's different clauses for the studios relating to the travel and mileage. So I'll read through the Ashford Studios clause, and I'll explain as well why it's like this. Productions based in Ashford will have a 16-kilometer radius south and west to the point that it meets the edge of the 40-kilometer radius from the GPO. From this edge, the 25-kilometer radius will apply. Productions based in Ashford must utilise Ashford Studios as a studio facility to avail of the Ashford Studios clause. If a production is based in Ashford Studios but is not availing of the sound stages, the standard radius rules apply. So the map, that funny looking map, illustrates that. So look, the reason for this, I'm sure people have figured this one out already, is the Ashford Studios existed and they were using the 16-kilometer zone before this agreement was negotiated and agreed and would come out. So obviously, someone might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when we were doing this agreement, Vikings, maybe still was the only production that was using Ashford, but they were using, like that show was in there, and they were availing of the 16-kilometer original radius, which gave them, you know, locations like some beaches down in British and locations that they were utilizing and using. So it was felt that it would be unfair to suddenly remove all those locations for them, right? So if we had stuck to the original 40-kilometer production zone rule for Ashford, Ashford Studios is right on the edge of the 40-kilometer GPO zone. So if you were to enforce that rule on Ashford Studios, it would remove a substantial number of locations that TV show was already utilizing. So we felt that this solution was a solution, and it kind of acknowledged the zone that they had been using, while also providing them with the 25 kilometers new zone. So basically what it is they get to still have the 16-kilometer zone south and west until it reaches the original 40-kilometer production zone, and then the 25-kilometer travel zone applies from there. It's actually much easier to illustrate on a map than it is to explain it. So hopefully you can see in this map, this is the edge of the 40 kilometers from the GPO. And you can see here it passes just below Ashford, right? So what's not on this map, but I'll indicate it here, is Ashford Studios is there, all right? So Ashford Studios has always had its 16-kilometer radius, like every production office has had for like the last 10 years, whatever. So this is what it would have had, 16 kilometers. So going forward, Ashford can still continue to have the 16 kilometers south, right, and west, in effect breaking the 40-kilometer zone from the GPO. And when that 16 kilometers comes back and hits the 40 production zone, then they're allowed to have the 25-kilometer zone that every other production office within the 40 is allowed to have, okay? Now, in addition to that, Ashford has what's called a GPO 5-kilometer radius. And my apologies, that it should be written here in text, but it's not. So I'll have to alter that in my little explainer. So what this means is, Ashford is a big studio, obviously, for Ireland, and the reason for the 5-kilometer zone in Dublin is to allow a production that's in Ashford if they need to use what we would call the Georgian core. So if they need you know, period streets, like if a big period job went into Ashford, it seems that it's not very clever to not be able to go into Dublin city centre and use the streets and the Georgian locations that are the urban Georgian locations that are in there. So in addition to this radius here, 25 and the 16, if you're based in Ashford Studios, you're also allowed to have a 5-kilometer radius of locations from Dublin's GPO, meaning you'd get Merrion Square, Fitzwilliam Square, Henrietta Street, Mountjoy Square, any of those. I mean, look, it would work for a contemporary drama as well, but my feeling is that really, if you're going to be based and using the sound stages in Ashford, you're probably building big sets. It's probably a period job. So that's the reason that 5-kilometer GPO radius is part of Ashford. Then the next radius is Troy, and Troy Studios has a 30-kilometer radius from the studio, as opposed to the 25-kilometer radius for the GPO locations. And that's it. That's my explanation of the travel and radius clauses in the new agreement.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Eoin. So it's a pretty brief explainer, but I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to kind of have it talked through. And then if you have any questions on the application of the clauses, please put them in the question and answer box now, and we can ask those to Eoin. I think there will be some anomalies that kind of crop up or what seem to be anomalies that crop up kind of as people are shooting and working. But I think a lot of that'll be kind of teased out. Oh, and I think you'd said that maybe there had been a couple of queries already about kind of the 5-kilometer zone within Dublin for Ashford and that type of stuff.
No, there has been. I was asked that about Ashford. Someone was inquiring, like, if they were to base themselves in Ashford, you know, that they wouldn't have their city location, but they will. And that's why that 5-kilometer radius is there. And to be honest, that was like, you know, look, when we were negotiating these and coming up with these clauses, we were trying to think of every possible thing that could come up. Or, you know, an obvious one is like Ashford Studios is one of our biggest studios in the country, and you know, if a massive period job did come in there that wanted to use city streets, it'd be inevitable that they'd want to use some city streets. It just makes sense that that's available to them, and that it's not, you know, because the mileage from Ashford back in there, it would just be prohibitive to have to keep paying that to an entire massive crew to go back there. So like there's a reason behind everything, and we hope that we've thought of everything putting this together. But I know that someone's going to think of something that we haven't thought of, and anyway, maybe not. We'll see.
Okay, well, there's no questions. So you did an excellent explainer, obviously. Everybody understands how this works.
Amazing.
I know, I guess I will just take the opportunity to say that I know we're still waiting on, oh, sorry, Graham. Hello, Graham. Let's just see, I should be able to Laura, are you able to unmute Graham?
Yes, 1 second, please.
Thank you.
Laura, do you need me to stop sharing to do that?
No, I should be okay. Just 1 second.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Graham. Yes.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah, listen, I just wanted to say there, to be fair, the locations clauses in the new agreement, or in any of the agreements, to be fair, have always been somewhat confusing for the people who don't actually work in the industry, namely myself and my other official colleagues as well. But just to say, no, fair play on that one. That's a very good example of how it should work. And I've even kind of got a few hints out of that there that'd be useful. I would just ask, if at all possible, I know now we probably had some of these charts and some of the maps when we were negotiating the agreement, but I'd appreciate if you could at all possibly make the slide presentation that you've given today available, because it's much clearer in my own mind having looked through that presentation. So I'd just like to say thanks a million, and if we could have a copy maybe of the slides, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, no, that's no problem, Graham. I think I've sent it to Jess. Is kind of like when people ask for to get it, I'm really nervous of it becoming like the official, you know, a country place to clauses. But definitely, sure. I think all parties to the agreement, it makes sense to have this. It does make it much simpler. Yeah. And to be honest, 80% of the jobs are using the example that I've laid out as a Dublin production zone example. So yeah, make sure you get copies.
Yeah, well, to be fair, Owen, it's only a matter of having it available just to kind of study it myself, and then at some stage I might be able to kind of answer some of the queries that come in. But to be honest, you would be for your sins my go-to man. So most queries that come in, I'll be saying, "Oh yeah, I'll put you directly in touch with Owen. He'll sort you out."
Yeah. That's been happening a lot. But it's fine. I'll send this to yourself and Martin. And to be honest, a lot of people, it's out there now. It's floating around. Like I've had a few people send it to me just to say, like, is this yours? Is it okay to, you know, pass it on?
Great. Yeah. Well, as I say, I won't pass it on, but I'll use it for our own reference in the office and that.
Grand. Thanks, Graham.
Thanks, Owen.
Thank you, Graham. Yeah, so just while people are on the line, just to say that we are still waiting on the official maps.
Oh.
So
yeah.
Sorry?
The maps. So yeah. So the problem with the maps is, yeah, it's kind of a COVID thing, and Ordnance Survey Ireland, and like it's kind of embarrassing that we don't have the proper maps to go with the it. But look, yeah, we're dealing with it. I just wish it was a bit faster, but we will have some sort of maps soon, I hope. And also, I think most location managers and line producers, production managers, are fairly well versed in using any of the online mapping tools to do up a radius to show crew. So I mean, so far I think that's what people have been doing.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to speak to, was just to say, look, we're waiting on the ordnance survey maps. As Eoin said, there's been a delay just with COVID. It's kind of complicated everything more than we would have expected. But that for the time being, there's kind of a, I suppose, an acceptance that using the radius, using an online mapping tool is acceptable. If there are any issues around that, obviously bring them to myself or alternatively to Graham, and we can tease those out if there's some sort of weird quirk on some online tool that isn't displaying on other ones or something like that. But because I think most of it's the drop pin location that we're looking at now, it simplifies everything in terms of just being able to kind of drop that pin and measure that radius outwards. And it hasn't, as far as I know, caused any issues. It's kind of working so far. So
yeah.
If there are any issues, again, just let us know and we can deal with that. But hopefully we'll have the ordnance maps soon.
Yeah, hopefully soon. I suppose I would reiterate, like, this is an explainer. Like, it really, you should read the clauses really carefully. That, like, you know, the stuff here I haven't mentioned just off the top of my head because I worked on it. Like, on Normal People, we had our office in Dublin, and then we located to Sligo to do the Sligo scenes, and then we'd come back to Dublin again. And that's addressed in the clauses. You know, you're allowed to do that. You find a production officer or a hotel crew base somewhere distant that's not in your original production zone, and then you have 25 kilometers from there as well, and obviously you pay the travel and mileage to get there, but once you're there and you keep your locations within 25, the same radius rules apply. I just didn't put them all into this explainer, but they're all in the clauses, and I just want to make sure people read this in conjunction with the clauses.
Wonderful. Look, if that's everything, I just want to thank you so much, Eoin, for your time. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you to all the attendees. You should have a copy of the explainer document, but if you don't, feel free to get in contact with me. Again, it's not an official explainer document, but it's just to kind of give a bit of visualization to how everything's going to work. And again, if you do have any questions, it's, you know, filter it through myself or alternatively, depending on who's on the line, if SIPTU is your appropriate contact point, filter that through SIPTU. Thank you so much, everybody. So we're hoping to do a few more series of these explainer sessions as the agreement starts to operate, because I'm sure there'll be other clauses that crop up that we just need to sit down and tease out a little bit more. But this was the one that I was kind of the most conscious of with people starting to go back to shoot. It would be the first time operating some of these revised clauses for people. But thank you to everyone for your time.
Thanks for organizing, Claire. Cheers.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.